one of the things that most students tell me that prevents them from engaging with Shakespeare or even dreading Shakespeare is that they just don't get the language. And it's hard for me as a person who not only studied it in university, has read it multiple times, and has taught it in class both semesters for 4, 5, 6 years. It's hard to pull back from that and to come from a place where you don't know a whole lot about this play. So what I try and do is just give examples as to how you can engage with text on your own terms and really how it should be read. So what I've done in this announcement, because it's not an assignment, it's just to get you engaged, is that there's a couple of things for you to think about. Number one, I've put in there Patrick Stewart reading Sonnet 15, which is a Shakespeare sonnet. And the reason I've done that is so that you can hear him, and he even struggles to read it. He's taken to reading these on Twitter so that it can be calming and soothing or whatever it may be. And so he even struggles with it. So here are a couple of tips that I just want you to think about in terms of reading the play on your own. Normally in class, as I stated before, we would stop and I'd say, hey, wait, what's going on? What are they saying? And in that, we would then engage with the text and we would hear other voices other than just yourself reading it and maybe not understanding it. So the one tip that I was giving is if you need to, please use No Fear Shakespeare, where it has both the text and then the translation right beside it. If that's what you feel comfortable doing, by all means, please do that. The reason that we're doing Shakespeare is because I want you to engage with poetic text so that you can analyze and break down some of the key literary and poetic devices that are used. That's essentially what this course is all about, is taking a text and trying to figure out the deeper meaning and how the reader comes to that realization as to what they're saying, because they're able to use all of those skills in order to be able to decipher. So that's why I'm encouraging you to engage with the text, but whatever you need to do, please feel free to do it. So when you're engaging with the text, if you're going to try and do this, realizing that you're actually, as an active reader, asking yourself a number of questions. So say, for example, this is Act 1, Scene 1, which is what I've asked you to actually read through. So some things to think about are who's involved in this? What's the tone or mood here? What's the relationship between all of these characters? And then you can start to understand, maybe by taking it instead of line by line, like this line, then this line, then this line, trying to understand is understanding that all of this is one sentence. So if you were trying to take this, then this, then this, you're actually taking fragments of sentences. He actually only says 2 sentences here. There's one. There's the second one. So we need to, when we're actually reading the text, to ensure that we're looking at the punctuation and reading it as though it's a sentence rather than line by line. So let's start with a couple of questions. First of all, we're in Act 1, Scene 1. The tone or mood is at night. It's on top of the castle. We have guards at night, and they're on edge because they've seen a ghost. And so what I know about the guards is that, and we'll see it a little bit later on confirmed when they interact with this ghost, is that they're not well educated. If you're a guard, then you probably didn't have access to education. So, you know, they don't have rational ways of looking at it or having maybe some science behind it, whatever it may be. They're just workers. And so they're a little confused and they need a little bit more information as to what they've seen. So when we're reading through this, Marcellus, Bernardo are actually guards, and Bernardo's sort of like the head guard. Horatio is Hamlet's best friend. And so they called him in because Horatio is educated and he's smart. So they want to make sure that what they're doing or what they're seeing is accurate. And so they've actually asked him to come onto night watch with them so that they can figure out what's going on. So here we have the entrance of Horatio where he comes in. Hello, Bernardo? Say what? Is Horatio there? A piece of him. Welcome, Horatio. Welcome, good Marcellus. What, has this thing appeared again tonight? I have seen nothing. So here's Marcellus. We've got the introduction of Horatio, and he's asking, has this thing appeared again tonight? Because they told him to come up, and he's like, I don't know what's going on. And so he said, has it come? And they said, no. So Marcellus explains to him what he's doing there. Horatio says, 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him, touching with this dreaded sight twice seen of us. Therefore, I have entreated him along with us to watch the minutes of this night, that, if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes and speak to it. So what is Marcellus saying to Bernardo? Horatio says, 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him. Right? We've seen this dreaded sight, or the ghost, twice, but Horatio says, it's just our fantasy. It's just made up. And he doesn't believe it. So then the next line is explaining to Bernardo why Horatio is there. I've entreated him along with us. So I've invited him to come tonight, that if this apparition or the ghost comes, he may approve our eyes and speak to it. In other words, he may prove that we're not crazy and that we're not just seeing a ghost, that he has seen it also. And he might be able to tell us what exactly is going on. But here we can see by Horatio's text, tush, tush, 'twill not appear. He doesn't believe it, and he doesn't necessarily think that this is actually what's going to happen. He doesn't believe that they've seen a ghost, right? So out of all of this, what I want you to think about as you're reading through the text is, 1, what's the tone or mood? What's the relationship between the characters? What do we know about them? And 3, make sure that you're reading with punctuation rather than line by line, because if you're doing that, you won't understand what's happening or what's going on. The last thing that I want to show you is that I heard that Amazon and Audible have now become free. So there are many different options on YouTube or whatever it may be. Apparently you can download Audible to your phone, and then you can download, instead of accessing it through the internet each and every time, you can actually download the copy, the app, and then the copy of Hamlet to a device so that you can actually listen to it whenever you want. So I posted the link for this within Classroom. If you have a device that you are able to download the Audible app, you should be able to access all of the stories here. It's mainly for kids, but they've allowed 90% of their material to be free. And so when I went through, I had to search for it. And instead of reading through it on your own, you could actually have them read to you while you go through it. And I'm not sure if you can hear that. Sometimes the audio going through won't necessarily come through. So if you wanted to, you could have that on while you follow through the text, and you can actually hear that enunciation or pronunciation of some of the words, but even how they talk through longer parts like this. If it's one lines one-line sentences, it's not hard to figure out what's going on. But when it's something longer, and I also stated that Hamlet has many soliloquies, which are where he's revealing his inner thoughts and feelings. So it might be beneficial for you to actually listen to them and then look at the text to break it down to understand exactly what he's saying. So those are just some ideas as to how you can engage with this text. This is one of the biggest challenges that I've ever faced in terms of teaching and doing this online. But I know we can do this. I know with the tools that we have, even if it's just the text that you have here that you can actually download so you don't have to access it through the internet. If you have problems with internet, please feel free to do any of those things. It is so great to talk to you. I wish this was a two-way conversation instead of just a one-way, but I know that we're going to get back together pretty soon. Take care, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me or send me a message through Remind.